After dinner that night, I felt sweat soaked my back from being too hot, made the decision to shower in order to make myself. The bathroom was tiny, but more comfortable. The warm water felt nice across my skin. Wonderful. I just finished taking a shower. Changed into a dress with a silky beige v-neck. Including a lengthy rear zipper that I usually wear at home, I entered the bedroom and wore it as I exerted pressure. When I pulled up the zipper, I found it was stuck within the center. Despite my best efforts, I couldn't raise it initially. I looked puzzled and intended to call my spouse for help, but when I walked in, the dim light was on in the living room. My father-in-law was the sole person seated in the chair, heard my footsteps, and raised his head. His eyes were a little startled. "Where are you?" "Father and wife," I asked, my voice, with considerable hesitation. "Aiden simply left, most likely to go shopping. If there's a problem," he spoke calmly, and I bit my lip. If I had no other choices, I spoke awkwardly, "And the zipper on my skirt is I'm stuck." "Could you tell me that?" he sat. His teacup was on the table, so he stood up and drew nearer so I could see him standing. The distance separating us felt like it was just behind me. Very close to me, his breath softly stroked my neck, causing me to uncomfortable. He cautiously reached for the zipper. He frowned a little. Said that it appears to be trapped in the fabric, and started tugging. I heard a single click, and everything happened as well. The zipper slid down quickly and firmly. The silky skirt fell to my feet. Suddenly, I was standing there. For a brief period, I was captivated by, felt as though the breeze from the window is timeless. Exploded out of my skin. Friendly welcome to all, I'm Leah. And I've been married for 28 years. For 3 years of our married life to Aiden seems perfect on the surface, with a good job, a beautiful home, and a steady economic situation. Aiden is a charming family man who is devoted to personally. I'm happy with my employment that enables me to demonstrate my abilities and discover joy in my daily tasks. We reside with Mr. John, my father-in-law, who is robust, in his late 60s, and calm. He is a wonderful person, whoever I always look up to. He not only acts as our family's father figure, but also as an intermediary between Aiden and myself. Conflict, our disagreements are mostly over. When Aiden has kids, he wants a more whole family laughing with the kids, but I'm not ready. I want to concentrate on my work for some time and go after my own objectives prior to becoming a mother. As a result, this story generated continuous discussion. But our arguments remained constant. Aiden's affection for us was always patiently persuaded, so I made an effort to elucidate. After every argument, the father-in-law graciously stepped in and told us. He was always emphasizing that family is about knowing one another. All might be resolved. Aiden and I progressively owe him the capacity to pay attention and yield to one. Additionally, I once thought that our lives would carry on in a pleasant manner, but everything changed one night. Surprisingly, that day was as hectic as any another. In the morning, to cook, I woke up earlier than normal. Aiden, breakfast for the whole family, favored a simple breakfast, usually a bread slice and a cup of black. I also bought myself a glass of coffee. To begin the day with a cup of warm milk, my Mr. John, the father-in-law, went on reading the newspaper while drinking tea each morning. The home's atmosphere is serene, cozy, and full of beautiful scents coming from the kitchen. After breakfast, I hastily got ready to leave. My office work wasn't very challenging, but it required a high level of emphasis. I wore a chic white shirt, pants and low-heeled shoes that raised my assurance. While traveling to the office, I stopped by a coffee shop nearby to treat yourself to another cup of latte. Myself before a long-time day. On that specific day, the office was busier than usual. The following meetings gave me with limited time to recover. I tried to reply to every email, job, and report on time, but I consistently kept a cheerful disposition since I understood that this piece wasn't merely accountability, it was also my love. When 5 p.m. rolled around, I gathered my documents and departed the office. As soon as I left the building, the lovely midday sun fanned the putting me at ease. Following a challenging day I went to the grocery shop after work to acquire some fresh food close to my house. I want to make something more exquisite today. Dinner than usual due to the fact that it has been a long time has passed since the whole family has had the chance to take a seat and eat collectively calmly. As I got home, Aiden was on his way to the kitchen after returned, and as he assisted me, he smiled. Get the table ready, it was served. Grilled fish, hot chicken soup, and flavorful stir-fry vegetables from which my father-in-law walked. The study was happy to see that we sat down to dinner. Down to have a meal while talking and giggling, even if there were a few minor disagreements about having children. Family meals continue to be the most treasured. Situations that I didn't expect that after the somewhat peaceful meal, something unexpected would interfere with following dinner. I felt a little stuffy and used the cold restroom. Water made me feel less anxious. After taking a shower, I changed into my beautiful silk dress in a milk color with a back zipper. When I was facing to zip it up, I saw the zipper was I had trouble with it halfway through, but unable to zip it up, so I went outside I was about to go into the living room. Despite Aiden's assistance, the living room was I turned and asked, "Where are you?" There was no answer from me. Aiden. Sitting in a chair was the father-in-law. As he looked up, Aiden went outside. "What's up?" I hesitated for a moment. Prior to stating, "Well, my dress's zipper is I'm trapped, can you help me get it up?" He put the book down and got up to let me. I noticed that he drew his eyes closer. As calm as ever, I slowly stepped aside, lowering my head to make more room for him access to the zipper's strength. The zipper was touched by strong fingers. Seems to be imprisoned within this fabric. Answered, trying to sketch it out, but the zipper collapsed when he exerted force. Just a small swish, and the dress fell away from me. Captivated, both of us confused, I unsure of how to react, so I stood similar to a statue. He quickly averted his voice. Full of grief, "I apologize, I didn't mean to." Swiftly lifted the garment in my hands. Dad pulled it over my body, trembling. "It's all right, Dad. My outfit is just," I said, loose, not daring to look up. Retreated a short distance in the hopes of maintaining his calmness. "Please mend it yourself." For Aiden to come back and plead for aid, he turned around and departed right away, leaving me in the room by myself. The atmosphere felt stuffy and unpleasant. My heart was pounding. Confused and ashamed, I was unable to concentrate on anything that night. When I recalled Mr. J's apology expression, I didn't know I felt heavier. His thoughts and I became even more. Aiden came home late, looking worried, as if he was unaware of what had happened. He kept grinning and talked happily without realizing that I tried to be normal, but I was upset. Couldn't suppress the feeling. Perplexed. In the days after the event, I saw a change in Mr. J. He stopped corresponding with me in the same way that he typically averting my eyes should we come into contact pathways throughout the house, which caused me to feel uneasy. Yet I was unsure of where to start talking to ease the discomfort, but I did occasionally catch he gazed at me, his eyes searching for something. During those times, I quickly turned away in an effort to appear cool. Despite the anguish in my emotions, I was able to not reveal his thoughts, which led to me even more worried. I persuaded myself that everything would pass, and that moment would fix the invisible fissures, but I was erroneous. That morning, I was exhausted, my throat ached, and after taking my temperature, I raced. I became aware that Aiden had a slight fever. I chose to leave early for work and head home. Take a day off to recuperate. While staying at home, the father-in-law, he spent his time in the study as usual, reading newspapers and books or engaging in. I spent a long time lying in bed doing his own thing. Feeling so worn out that I may try to go to sleep, but the room was very heated, so I made the decision to enter the living room and retrieve some. I was wearing simple pajamas in the chilly air. My skin is pale, and my hair is free from. I felt ill when I walked into the living room. I saw Mr. John sitting in a chair. I stared intently at his phone screen. Spoke a gentle hello, but instead of answering, he raised his head to look at me, but his eyes weren't longer than the calm ones I was accustomed to. "You're feeling under the weather," he stated in a voice louder than usual. "Yes, I do have a tiny. I'm taking today off, because I have a fever," I said. Attempting to keep a normal manner, he simply nodded without saying anything else, but he kept staring at me as though searching for anything in my appearance. That sensation made me quite anxious. I intended to go outside and get away. the demanding setting, but as I heard him turn around. Call Leah, I've got things to do. Inform you that when I stopped, my heart felt constricted. With an odd feeling, Mr. JN got to his feet. His eyes were focused and stared straight ahead. The room's air became heavy around me. Could sense my palms and my pounding heart. Sweaty Leah, you look amazing. Spoke in a deep, resonant whisper. I froze in the solitude, feeling as even if my legs were weaker. Every word made my whole body feel cold. He spoke like a dad slashing one day. Via my heart, Dad. How are you? About it, I shivered as my voice choked, but he didn't answer. He approached swiftly, and with every stride gave me the impression that the area around me was staring at me with narrowed eyes. Not he briefly moved and spoke to Leah in, could you please use a forceful yet calm tone? I was unable to stand there and see you again. You have no idea what I just heard with my eyes. Expanded in search of indications that he wasn't kidding, but his gaze was so strong that I was left. I nearly yelled, Dad. Shocked. Trying to keep things under control. How are you able to say such things? Feel awful for Aiden. He paused his face had a bewildered look, yet I don't know, Leah, but my eyes never left mine. He whispered softly, what happened to me, his voice pleading, ever since I've been thinking about you nonstop. Walked back, trying to keep my distance. Dad, what you said is utterly false, you are destroying the I'm your bond in this family. I am aware that he interjected, daughter-in-law. His voice rose, but right away I can comprehend softening, but I'm unable to manage the sensation. Dad, I shouted. I'm shaking and crying, but I couldn't hear it any longer. Understand how you could say things like that. This is unbelievable. Mr. John stood still. His gaze lowered to the ground as though battling an internal force in the air was dense in the space, and after a long silence, he sagged his shoulders and moaned. Whispering, tremblingly but quietly, I don't know why things happened, Leah. I apologize in this way, but I am unable to tell a falsehood. I stood there myself, perplexed and terrified, but felt imprisoned. And immobile, he approached his stare was heavy, but his step was deliberate. Fixed on me with a lot of tension and an unnameable suffering, I took a step back, but my route was impeded by a small table behind me. I am aware that this is leaving me with no way out. Is awful, he remarked softly but clearly. I'm worried about this feeling and don't want to hurt you, yet my thoughts haven't stopped about you ever since. My heart was racing with such ferocity that it appeared to be in my chest, ready to burst. Do you realize who you are, Dad? Stating that we are unable to do this is false, it will destroy everything. I screamed, my voice cracking in pain. He stopped before me, his eyes full with I am aware that Leah is grieving. Of anything, but I also understand that I am unable to return, do you sense it? His inquiry also pierced deeply into my like a scalpel to the mind. I tried to reject it by shaking my head. However, my body wouldn't comply with his eyes begged, not with thoughts, strain, but with a feeling of powerlessness and vulnerability. I don't know what took place. The entire room appeared at that same instant. All sounds seemed to fade into obscurity. As he moved onward, the area was almost gone between us, yet I didn't remove all of the imperceptible obstacles. Between us had disappeared, and as soon as it was finished, I sat in my hands shaking violently in the chair. My heart was still racing, but the feeling was one of great terror instead of as opposed to dispute. I was astounded by what had simply happened. Mr. JN stood before me with his eyes brimming with Leah. He started in awe, but his voice strangled. I said, my voice trembling. Keep quiet, don't utter another word. I got up. Even though it seemed like my legs had when the power went off, I tried to move quickly in the direction the door when my hand got there. Knob, he said once more, his voice full of I'm terribly sorry, Leah. I apologize for not looking around. I just silently exited the room with tears in their eyes. Down my cheeks, and feeling overpowered by regret and hopelessness. I was unsure how to confront John or Aiden after what had simply occurred while I was lying in bed that night. Pictures that keep me awake, sensations, and phrases entered my mind, and I pondered, how did things get to this point? How can we face reality from this vantage point? I had no answer, and perhaps John didn't either. In the days after, I was in ongoing discomfort with the thought of telling Aiden I was thinking about everything, yet each time I thought about it, I felt helpless. I was aware that if Aiden discovered his connection to my dad would never be the same once more, that unique father-son relationship would be broken. I attempted to hold everything for eternity, while concealing my sorrow and embarrassment, although it simply made me feel even more confined. Recognized that my only option was to this is the only way to get out of here. Stop the situation from getting worse and protect this family from collapsing. I started to make plans, but I made an effort to be upbeat. As though everything were typical, I didn't want Aiden to know something wasn't right till I managed to courage to say what I made breakfast every day because I wanted to. Wiped the house and grinned as though everything was all right, but deep down I had made my choice. One night after supper, I waited for an answer in the living room. Chance to speak with Aiden, I muttered, gently trying to maintain a calm voice. Aiden, I have something to share with you. Looked up at me, his wide-eyed gaze worry. What's wrong? Is something incorrect? I inhaled deeply in an effort to let me unwind. I believe we ought to go out. Might start a new life somewhere else. I think it would be advantageous for us both. Why did Aiden stop his furrowed brow? Would you want to do it right now? We've been performing well here. Is there a problem? Incorrect. I tried to smile and shook my head. Nothing, reassuringly. I just wanted to give us some room. And I think it's time to. As he left, Aiden touched my shoulder and added, really, Leah, I understand. There is a problem, and you don't have to keep that from me, and let me know what's wrong. Prior to my reply, John went down. He had heard all of the steps. Leah is right in the exchange, JN mentioned his soft but firm voice. Aiden, I think you two ought to leave since you and Leah need to. I give you some room to start your lives. I do not wish to keep you both here. Aiden stared at him with wide eyes for eternity. In awe, however, I don't want to abandon you, Dad. Think that we can still lead happy lives. Mr. John smiled and touched them together. You don't have to. Look at Aiden's shoulder. You and Leah are okay, don't worry about me. Ought to determine what's best for your future. Aiden was quiet for a while. Moment, his eyes slowly becoming calmer. If you say so, Dad, he will finally nod. I'll agree, but I'll come see you. Often, I remained silent, although I bowed my head in a dejected, and I was relieved to comprehend why Mr. JN helped. This was his way of creating reconciliation and keeping the family from alone. I stood as night fell, looking out the window of my room with an empty feeling. I realized that leaving was the right choice, but the grief and I would always feel guilty no matter where I went. I learned a great lesson from tale. Every error starts with a small border breach. Occasionally all that's needed is a brief instance of negligence or weakness can lead to unforeseen outcomes. Although none of us are perfect, it is essential for identifying and fixing errors. Always cherish the relationships you have, particularly with your family, which is not only a place of safety, but also an obligation to protect. One evil move might destroy all we've worked so hard to the years, so be alert and aware of your restrictions, and don't let your feelings to overcome you because people in comparable situations may. The action should be chosen that causes the least amount of damage to. Not everyone's departure is an escape. It might be the best method to protect. Learn to let go of the people you care about, since it not only sets you free but also permits you to keep up the outstanding values you want to. Protection I took with me as I left that location. Both suffering and important. Life is a continuous journey of learning, and I made a self-promise to never go again. I'm mistaken, my story ends here. Happened and gave me the most important lesson. My life's lesson is the significance of relatives and accountability. I appreciate you listening, and I hope my story helps you stay away from similar errors.